Sorry about that, guys. I was having issues with my city laptop, and I was like, man, I got to get my other one going. So,
Well, I appreciate it, Joseph. You made a quorum, and I think that seems to be a few folks having trouble with technology this morning, so no worries.
Yep,
right.
yep. We had trouble last
Okay,
night.
there we go. Joan. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and convene the Wednesday, October 5th meeting of the Thurston County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. For the record, let's go ahead and do introductions. We have our chair, Renee Sinclair, is excused. I'm Jim Cooper from the City of Olympia. Commissioner Mejia is excused. Joe, introduce yourself.
Joe Downing, Port Commissioner. Happy to be here.
Joan.
Joan Cathy, City of Tumwater.
Have Ed. Joseph.
Oh, hey, Joseph Richardson, Yelm City Council.
Elaine.
Elaine, City of Tenino.
Steve.
Dean Benning, Senior Program Manager with Thurston County.
Steve.
Steve Purcell, Mayor of Bucota, 5 feet west of the bright shining center of the known universe.
You can see that spot on the globe behind you. That's cool. Welcome.
Richard Moon, District 2 resident.
Delroy. Chad.
Chad Sutter from Sutter Metals, recycling industry representative.
David.
David Nightingale, Special Waste Associates Business Representative.
Ecology sends her regrets she couldn't make it today. And so let's go to Jeff. Can you introduce the staff or all around?
Sure. Okay, Jeff Bickford, Solid Waste Manager. Amanda, right there, sitting next to Jim. Looking down to this, Patrick Soderberg.
Patrick Soderberg, Public Health and Social Services, Solid and Hazardous Waste Program.
We have Chris Hawkins. And he's muted.
Sorry, I thought I hit that button. Chris Hawkins, Program Manager of Education and Prevention here at Public Health and Social Services. Good morning.
Also at the center of the bright shining universe on the map there.
Dean has already introduced himself. We also have Rob Pudner.
Hi, I'm Rob, Recycling and Waste Reduction Specialist with Thurston County Public Works.
And I think that's it. Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. Wait, who did I miss? Did I miss any other staff? Oh, okay. Then let's see. The names keep bouncing around on my list here, so I have to keep going up and down. I guess we're looking for guests. No, wait, I'm sorry. We do have one. Angela. She's taking our minutes today.
And then Wendy's on too.
Yep. So as far as guests, Wendy is our presenting today.
Hi, everyone.
Steve Gilmore with Republic Services.
Jeff Harwood, LeMay Pacific Disposal.
Nick Harbor, Waste Management.
I see also John Cox Sr.
Good morning. Sorry about that. I was having phone issues.
We have Ron Jones from City of Olympia.
Yeah, planner in our municipal utility.
And Gary Franks also from Olympia.
Gary Franks, Waste Resources Director for the City of Olympia.
I see Aaron Robertson.
Pacific Disposal.
And Kylie Graber.
With Public Health.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you as staff. I'm sorry. Trying to see if I missed, is there anybody else who hasn't been introduced yet? Okay.
Yeah, that was helpful. It is a little hard to read the list. Well, I know one thing for sure, we wouldn't all fit in this conference room if we came together. So we should plan a time to get together somewhere sometime soon for one of our meetings. It might be fun. So that takes us to the approval of the agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
A motion by Joe and a second by Elaine. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Carries. Thank you. Next, I'm looking for a motion for approval of the minutes from September 7th.
So move.
A second?
Second.
A motion from Joan and a second from Elaine. Any amendments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Any of our guests have public comment for today's meeting? Okay, we have no old business. And then that takes us to the continued discussion of the potential South County transfer station. And I believe I'm turning it over to Wendy.
You are, and I'm trying to start my video. There we go. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me back again. So Amanda, can you put up the slides? And so we're here to talk about the South County Transfer Station stakeholder engagement update today. Next slide, please. So we've gone over a couple of times through SWAC presentations about the objectives and the overview of the stakeholder engagement process that Thurston County completed in August of this year. And of course, the objective was to get community feedback on the future of the Dropbox sites that are located in southern Thurston County. Also looking to raise awareness of the problems with the current Dropbox sites and demonstrate how a solution is needed to fix the issues and accommodate the growing population that's occurring in South Thurston County. And then, of course, to provide clear and consistent messaging to those participating in the process so that everybody knows what our project scope and milestones were, as well as potential future services that might be looked at. Demonstrate a thorough process of thoughtful consideration of options and trade-offs, and then build momentum for the project. So we've had a very successful project and want to go over, I think you guys also got a copy of the draft technical memo that was issued. It may have came to you later, but we want to go over some of the responses that we got from the survey and have a discussion with the SWAC about next steps. So next slide, please. We asked a number of questions. Our surveys were a little bit different between the Intercept surveys and the online surveys, because basically the Intercept surveys, we conducted those actually on site at Rainier and Rochester. But we tabulated all of the survey responses, and we have some conclusions to share with the SWAC today. So we did 168 Intercept surveys between Rainier and Rochester and 247 online surveys for a total of 415 surveys, which I think that's a pretty good response for surveys for a project. Some of the conclusions that we have reached based on those surveys is that 84% of those surveyed were residential self-haul customers. A lot of that was driven by the Rainier and Rochester Intercept surveys, but those surveys were invaluable to us because of the responses we got from actual customers utilizing the sites. And then the SWAC asked us to ask a couple of questions. How many subscribed to curbside collection was the first one. And so 57% of those that responded to the surveys do subscribe to curbside collection services. And then the other question, which I thought was a really good question from the SWAC, and we hadn't considered it until we met with the SWAC, was how many of those surveyed travel to the WARC for recycling and disposal service. And we thought that was an interesting response. 58% of those surveyed said they had to travel to the WARC for services for solid waste and recycling services. I think we see that we couldn't delve into it too far, but we think we're seeing that because of the household hazardous waste facility and those services that's not offered in Southern Thurston County. And then also that those drop box sites don't operate 7 days a week, and participants needed disposal and recycling services outside the days that those drop box sites were offering. So that was a great question, and I thank the SWAC for bringing that up. We also asked participants, what do you typically use the sites for? And it was pretty even that they use it for recycling, household garbage, and bulky item disposal. And then we also asked, what additional services would you like to see? And we had them rank them between 1 and 5. And so when we looked at them, organics was the #1 ranking that they would like to see services in Southern Thurston County. And then household hazardous waste, tires, and appliances. Next slide, please. In addition to that, we also asked them, what kind of, and you can see the actual survey tabulation on this one as well. So we asked them, if you were to utilize the new site, what days of operation would best meet your disposal needs? And it was pretty even across the board that basically they want to see 7-day per week availability to a site. And you can see based on the combined survey that, it was basically a third, a third, and a third for Saturdays, Sundays, or weekdays. And then the other question that we ask is, how many miles are you willing to travel to a disposal site? And so the most common response was they were willing to travel up to 10 miles, but 40% of those surveyed would be willing to travel between 11 and 20 miles as well. And you can see the breakdown of how that the combined survey response and the individual responses that we got and how those tabulated as well. Next slide, please. We also had interviews with Waste Connections as the curbside collector in the county, and talked to them pretty thoroughly about what kind of services they would like to see for their curbside collection. And I think we have quite a few Waste Connection people on the call today, so chime in if you want to add anything. But the basic conclusions that we got out of those were they estimate potentially 80 tons per day would come to the transfer station if it was located in the south part of the county. And based on that, we would estimate about 20,800 tons per year, which would provide some relief to tonnage processed at the WARC. Now we have to understand that it would probably be a rerouting of some of the Waste Connection routes down there in order to get that tonnage into a facility, because currently they bring all that waste up to the WARC. So these are just estimates that Waste Connections provide us. And if the county decides to move forward with siting a transfer station, additional information would need to be obtained from Waste Connections. They also thought that a facility located near Tenino would best accommodate their haul routes in that area, and that they would like to see early morning access to the facility, potentially through RFID cards, to be able to scan in and out of the facility and get their weight tickets on site. And then they also provided us, which I thought was a really great recommendation, that the county consider upsizing the facility to allow for population and tonnage growth and to accommodate waste in the case of WARC outages. I think, as we all know, the work has had some outages at the site, you know, whether that be due to weather or equipment failure. And it would be very nice to have a second facility that waste haulers could reroute tonnages to through collection. So those were the basic conclusions from the Waste Connections interview that we conducted. We also, next slide, please. We also talked to the contractor, Republic Services, to get their conclusions based on operational issues. And so the following are their conclusions: that they would like to see a facility located with easy access to truck routes in the I-5 corridor. They'd like to see that basically they would, if a transfer station was placed in the southern portion of the county, they would be direct hauling from that facility to the Centralia intermodal. And so the easier the access to truck routes and the I-5 corridor, you know, the less hauling costs they would have, which, you know, of course, passes on to the county expenses and of course goes into the tipping fee. They would also like to see a facility located near the Grand Mound Tenino area. And again, that's closer to the I-5 corridor with cost savings to the county. They are able to support 7-day-per-week operations, and typically Republic employees operate on 10-hour shifts, being standard for them. So I think that's an important consideration for the county, and also Waste Connections as look at the potential moving forward of how many hours per day can the facility be open to handle waste from that area. Republic also provided some information on some additional operational equipment that they would need, and that this would be an added cost, potentially offset by not having to haul the small drop box loads to the wharf for compaction and transport to the intermodal. We also had a discussion about how organics could be handled at a facility, since that was one of the #1 items that the survey respondents wanted, and talked about the potential to transload and transport those to the wharf for processing through the grinder and then for composting. And they also noted that recyclables could be transloaded on site for direct haul to a MRF as well. So that was our conversation with Republic Services, basically the highlights. Next slide, please. We also had discussion with Lewis County, their solid waste manager and their recycling coordinator. And I think the two highlight conclusions that Jeff and I got out of that conversation was that their Centralia transfer station has traffic and operational issues, but working cooperatively with Thurston County for a new transfer station facility that would service both counties would currently be unlikely for them. They are looking more to build a future transfer station in their southern area of the county, at least south of Centralia, where their population seems to be growing as well. And then we also talked to them about whether they keep a record of customer counts arriving at their Centralia facility from Thurston County. And they let us know that they do not keep a record of that. And they also do not keep a record of those Thurston County loads of HHW that are coming into their Hazo House as well. So we thought that was pretty interesting and should be a conclusion from our discussion with them. So with that, next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff to talk about the next steps.
Okay, so it's really, what we're looking at, we figured the next step would be, first off, discussion among you all, but be making a potential recommendation. Well, first off, be a briefing of the Board of County Commissioners on what the findings were from this study. But from this group, really what we figure based upon what we've heard and the data, I mean, really the next step would be, okay, we've heard what types of services you're looking for, your willingness to travel to a new facility. So the next step would really be looking at, okay, let's do a siting study to determine where would what is available and what, what is available as far as for potential locations for a new facility. So what I'm looking from this group, from the SWAC, is potentially, if this is something that you're interested in, is making a recommendation to our Board of County Commissioners that we proceed with looking and performing a siting study to look at potential future sites. And that'd be the first of many steps. Following that, once you've determined some potential sites, then there's been to be additional public outreach beyond that. Once you start to kind of hone in on locations, because obviously that's of high interest to individuals. So, and then further onward and onward if you continue to move forward. So I guess, again, what the ask here today from the group, after any other discussion, is that if you are willing, a motion basically to send this to the county commissioners to brief them on these findings, and with the recommendation to move forward with a siting study. So with that, I will kick it back to Jim and the group for any discussion.
Jeff and Wendy, can you bring down the PowerPoint, and that way we can see? Joseph, you raised your hand, I think, and then I'll go to Joe.
Hey, yeah, guys, I'm still pretty new here, so forgive me. I'm not trying to, I just have a question when it comes to like recycling, especially with recyclables being transloaded on site for direct haul to the MRF or anything that has to do with transfer stations. I had talked to somebody that actually works at one of these transfer stations, and I was really intrigued by the, everything. But then I thought about, man, it's so cool that we recycle. And then they kind of said, well, not everything goes to recycling, Joe. And I'm just like, whoa, time out. So is there a way that we can, and I know you guys have like tours sometimes where everybody can come tour and check it out and watch the whole process, but how do we really verify that everything's being taken to where it's supposed to be, and with the recycling not getting, bundled up with everything? I mean, can somebody give me some kind of a education, or just give me some confidence that we are recycling?
With that, I think I will kick it over to Waste Connections, since they are the recycling on route hauler, as well as they process and manage the recyclables coming from both the drop boxes and the transfer station. So,
all right. So this is Jeff Harwood. So all the recyclables that we handle come to our transloading. Sometimes we refer to our facility on Hogan Bay Road as a MRF, but it's really more of a transload facility. Source separated materials like cardboard or perhaps aluminum that come in from the work or come in from commercial entities are baled and direct marketed, but the bulk of the tonnage that comes through the facility, which is close to 3,000 tons a month, is being baled to reduce the cost of the transportation. It goes up to Pioneer Recycling in Frederickson. Anytime, like if the committee would like to take a tour of the facility, we can get hooked up with Dave Clogus up there, and you can go up and you can check it out. That is their specific function is to stratify the the commingled materials that come into them. They've got many millions of dollars worth of equipment there to process it, and they've got a long track record of processing and marketing recyclable materials. Right now it's really tough because the commodity values are very, very depressed. As a matter of fact, just for a comparison, it's $119 a ton to tip a load of MSW at the work. And last month we paid $115 a ton to them to process the single stream material that we collected at the curb. So I guess the bottom line is there's no such thing as a free lunch, and recycling is not free, especially right now, because there's just such low value for the, for the elements.
Just to kind of bring it right back to Joseph's question before I go back to him, it's still being recycled unless there's contamination in the load, right?
That is correct. Yeah, and of course, one thing I'd want to put caveat on that, every one of the facilities, you're always going to have a residual amount of contamination in the material, depending on where it's coming from. For instance, if it's coming from like multifamily, it's going to be really high. If it's going to be from single family, it's going to typically be much less. Most of the time, residual percentages coming out the back end, I'm not sure exactly what they're running at Pioneer right now, but I'm going to just say like around maybe like 10% might be expected, but I haven't been tracking that recently, so I could get that number for you, but I think that's reasonable to assume.
Follow up, Joseph?
Yeah, so from my understanding there, and thank you for that insight on that Jeff. So all the processing with the recyclables is transferred to Frederickson, and that's where they handle that?
Yes.
Okay, that's good to understand. So then,
and I highly suggest doing the tour. It's really eye-opening and it's super high tech. It's fascinating.
Okay, because I didn't want to just discredit information I got, and that's why I don't. It kind of puts how do you say? It kind of gives a lot of explanation, because somebody who's working at a transfer station goes, man, it's all going to the same place. And so with them seeing things get transloaded, it kind of gives me their perspective on what they were trying to say. But as far as watching the recycling actually getting processed, that's another, that's at a different location. But thank you for that. I don't want to waste anybody's time. I'm not trying to start things. I'm just curious.
I saw David and Steve Gilmore's hands go up while we were talking about this, and I wanted to see if either of them is follow-up to Joseph's question before I go to Joe Downing next.
Yeah, I do have a follow-up from what Joseph was saying. I was wondering, Jeff, do you attribute the poor market conditions in any part to the China refusal to take a lot of these commodities anymore? I don't know what it's called, something sword.
Yeah.
And is there a prospect with infrastructure stuff at the federal level or other policies that you think may improve that market condition in the near or medium future?
Well, it's certainly a function of supply and demand. As China has become much more discriminating on what is acceptable, going back to the question, it all goes to the same place. Well, previously, I think there certainly was a time, I was around when we rolled out the Seattle curbside program in 1987. And as the recycling programs developed and there was more and more pursuit for diversion, unfortunately, as we added a whole lot of new elements into the program materials, we kind of got on the verge of turning our recycle into a garbage cart. You tell people that they can put plastic bottles in. Well, that means different things to different people. And that happens with lots of other things when we're trying to recycle. We loaded up in an overseas container and we shipped it off to China or India or Korea or wherever it might have been destined to be processed. And let's face it, a high percentage of, I think that was happening, they go through and high grade it and pull out the good stuff, and the rest of it went in a hole in the ground in a foreign country. I think there's a lot less of that going on now, which in the grand scheme of things is a good thing. But, unless we have a market for the materials where there's some value, it's tough to make it happen. There's times when, like especially with the plastics, where the Plastic Council was heavily subsidizing plastics because, plastic needs to be recyclable or it's not going to be popular. It's not going to be a popular commodity. So I think we're headed down. I think we're headed down a good path. I would be very hesitant to try to predict what's going to happen with markets in the future. I know Steve might have an opinion on that, but I mean, it's, it's kind of like watching the stock market or anything here. It's like, how do you predict? And so I think it's very, very difficult to see what's going to happen with the commodity markets in the future. Although hopefully they don't get any worse.
Do you think that single stream recycling may be on the wane and going back to source separation again?
Boy, I don't think so, because I think what you're going to see
too far
is,
off track.
Yeah. There might be a narrowing of the program materials, because we got to keep it simple. If we're just doing paper and tin and aluminum and cardboard, that's pretty simple. When we start trying to throw additional things in there, people have a lot more ways to make mistakes.
Hey, this is Greg. Just want to interject a little bit on two things. On the organic side, we see a problem with contamination, which can contaminate large volumes of material by well-intended but poorly thought out and poorly served municipal programs. And so with a lot of that stuff, we'll see that with food waste. Like all the compostable food serviceware, and there's been some legislation for truth in labeling and all this other stuff. But there's greater issues than just the laws around that. It's the variability in how the processing plants work. And so, we'll often see a lot of problems with contamination and large volumes of material that can't be made into a finished product because of programs that are incentivized to increase the amount of volume diverted, but in the end increases the amount of contamination. And so that's one thing to think about, especially while programs are being made and while us as a group are looking at things to try to increase diversion. What's really the end effect of that? Because it's been a big problem in the food waste and in the yard waste world. So I just wanted to throw that in there as not the China issue, but really a local issue that comes about for some of these programs.
Greg. Steve?
Yeah, so Jeff and Greg are spot on. I mean, the markets are what they are. They go up and down. I don't think it really has very little to do with China any longer. There are actually local markets for most of the commodities that we do collect. They're just incredibly low, unfortunately, in terms of the pricing. The residuals that are coming out of our MRF in Seattle, which takes over 200,000 tons a year, is about 9%. However, depending on the community, for instance, when we receive material from the university district, the contamination rate is about 30%. Well, residential communities, neighborhoods are about 5 to 6%. So it really just depends on the communities and multi-housing and those sorts of things like Jeff mentioned before.
So Joseph, as you can see, we have lots of expertise, so definitely invite you to continue the conversation with everyone that just chimed in. I think I'm going to Joe Downing next.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to make an observation to Wendy and a comment back to Wendy on the survey that you reviewed. On the copy that went out this morning on page 10, the question, what days of operation would best meet your needs? How I interpreted that is that Saturday and Sunday, 60+% of people would use a facility, and 30 to 40% would use it over 5 days. So 60+% over 2 days, and the remaining 5 days, about say 40%. So my suggestion is to look hard at whether or not this South County transfer site, of which I'm strongly in favor of, needs to be operated 7 days a week, like the WARC. I mean, maybe it'd be more efficient because, after all, we are, everything costs money, and perhaps we should look at the numbers Monday through Friday and see if there's a day. I'm not going to suggest. Some businesses are closed on Mondays after being open on the weekend and so on and so forth. So That's my suggestion on that transfer site.
Thank you, Joe. And that's a great comment. I think, you know, when we did the surveys, we were only surveying, you know, basically residential people. The county will also have to take into consideration what the curbside collection company will need waste connections for operations. And we had some discussion with them about that. Could we be closed Monday? And you know, how does that work with their curbside facility, curbside collection? So I think it's further discussion with the hauler, because they'll be bringing in the majority of the tonnage into the facility. So they'll be the ones that the county will want to, you know, take into account when they look at that facility. But good comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wendy.
Hey, this is Greg one more time. Sorry to interject here, but Wendy, did you get much feedback on, you know, whether or not there is a lot of people avoiding the South County stations because of lack of dump trailer service? I know a lot of people who run more commercial type stuff, and you know they never go there because they're always loaded in a dump truck or dump trailer.
So we didn't get a lot of that because they're not in there when we did the Intercept surveys. So the only way we could think about that was through the online surveys. And when you look at the survey response for those that go to the Waste and Recovery Center, only 37% of those that did online survey responded that they go to the WARC. 62% said no. So we couldn't really get to, you know, the small volume self-haul or commercial customers that are using a dump trailer as part of the survey. But, you know, it's a good question and something to consider.
Something we could design for if we.
Yeah. I mean, if you're designing a transfer station and you put a flat floor in, then everybody can use it. So, yeah.
See any, so I have Delroy, and then I'll go to Joseph.
Hello, everybody. Sorry I got in here late. I had computer problems, and the number one problem was me.
Welcome.
But I am here, and I did read through the information that was sent out this morning. One comment that I have, it was talking about the size of the building. My experience is you never build it large enough. And I think every facility that I've been involved with, when it gets close to the life expectancy of the thing, you run out of space. So I would just caution you to give that extra consideration. Then I know, but you didn't talk about rates or anything else. But I'm assuming that if there's a transfer station in South County, that it would be a blended rate, so your tipping fee would be the same at both locations. That's my comments. I thought the report was pretty thorough and very informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Delroy. I think going back to your question, we got some really good feedback from Waste Connections when we interviewed them about, you know, facility needs and stuff. And so the county would certainly need to take those into consideration. The group from Waste Connections commented quite well about, you know, upsizing the facility and being able to accommodate materials if there's a shutdown of the WARC. And, you know, the SWAC needs to consider too that we're also trying to alleviate some of the tonnages from the WARC as part of this facility, you know, looking at that. So I think those are good comments, Delroy. Thank you.
Joseph?
Yeah, this is for Wendy too as well. With this new location being proposed, I know I went to the one in Rainier and I was trying to dispose of a air conditioning unit, and they weren't accepting those. So appliances and refrigerated, will those be accepted at this location?
So that's one of the questions that we asked as part of the survey. What additional commodities would you like to see in appliances for disposal was one of those options. So yes, that's something that the county will need to consider if they choose to move forward with a new facility there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Seen anyone else? I have two questions. So Wendy, just two comments on the technical memo. I don't see the sample size for the survey, for the online survey in it.
Don't you dare tell me about the typo on page 1 because I found that this morning.
No, I'm not doing typos, but I read it a couple times and I see the survey, the sample size for the surveys in person and
it's under booths. It's under booths. It says overall 247 surveys.
What about the online survey section? It doesn't have a number.
That is the online.
Okay. So my suggestion is to go ahead and put the sample size for each category right at the top of the table so that the reader, when they skip to the table and skip all the narrative, can see that context, because I think it's really important.
Yep.
And then let's see, I'm just gonna say this out loud and it's your report, but I would reframe the miles traveled to be a conclusion that a supermajority of the respondents will not travel more than 10 miles. I think by lifting up that 40% that are willing to go further, you make it sound like more people will drive further, and it's really a supermajority that are only willing to go 10 miles. And then a question. The Lewis County conclusion you made about them not having data about Thurston County visitors to their facility, that implies that we have that data. So is that something that we've been able to use from our work in our other locations to know how many people are actually coming to these facilities from outside of the county?
I don't believe that Thurston County has that or Lewis County. Nobody has looked at that at this point.
So I would make that conclusion more general because it sounds like there's a difference when I read it. But good feedback and great response rates. It's cool to see that kind of participation and people willing to talk to you in person as well. So are there any other questions or comments before we start talking about an action? Gary.
Yeah. Hey, Gary Frank, City of Olympia. Yeah. Hey, I just had one question. I know the county had signaled some time ago about doing a rate study for the work, but I think that got tabled. And I can't remember what the reasons were around that. Now we're talking about, potentially citing a new location. That's going to cost money. If you had, let's say you had to buy property, that could cost money. There's going to be investment in construction and setup of a facility along with running a facility. And I know you've already got 2 satellite locations. And so, if this is really stemming from growth and that's one big factor, maybe not the whole thing. I know a rate study may be beneficial because then you can look at how you're going to set the rates. Because when you talk about a blended rate, that I get a little concerned about, well, does that mean our rates are going to go up to pay for the South County transfer station, which is then passed on to all of our ratepayers? And so I'm not looking for necessarily answers today. It's just, thinking ahead about, what the potential cost impacts are to the community at large, and for those that struggle. So anyway, that's more of a comment, but like what I see so far.
Context about how rate setting will happen in this process?
So to Gary's question about the rate study, yes. So HDR was and still is under contract with the county to do a rate study. We did some preliminary rate information, and then the county and HDR put that project on hold as the county went out for the contract for operations, because rates are very dependent on the contract for operations of the sites. So the county still has us on hold on that rate study, because we want to not only look at that, which that was signed in May by the Board of County Commissioners, but also look at this project, which is the South County Transfer Station, and what the county wants to do there, and also what the expansions to the WARC are going to cost. And so I know presentations were made as part of the solid waste management plan as to what the county had in reserves to fund projects. So I think moving forward with both those projects, it's probably good for the county to hold on the rate study until they figure which projects are going to move forward with, and at what pace they're going to move forward with. So that's a good question, Gary. Thank you.
That's really helpful, actually. Gary, do you still have your hand up? Go ahead.
It didn't go away for some reason. I don't know. Does it go away on its own?
No, you have to lower it.
Oh, I have to lower it? Okay.
Put your hand down, Gary.
I'll try to figure that one out. Well, one other comment about the rate study too, as you do that, City of Olympia is really curious and that would love to, if there is an opportunity to provide input, of course, we'd love to do that. The services that are provided out there for which we pay. And then, when you think about things like how many people from outside of the county that's self-hauling to Thurston County, and then they're paying the same rate. And then potentially there's a potential rate to go up to fund South County Transfer Station. And then you could have other people outside of the county on that end coming to the facility. And, I'm curious about just the different rate structures and rates that we're paying. If people are coming into Thurston County and just loading up the work, and they're coming from out county because it's cheaper and easier, maybe there ought to be looking at different rate structures and stuff. So, but that's a way later conversation. City of Olympia would love to participate in that conversation when the time comes.
Okay, so speaking of money, before we consider an action, Jeff, can you tell us, is a rate study already budgeted, or would that be something the commissioners would work on in this new biennial budget?
Well, the rate study as
I'm sorry, not the rate study, the siting study.
Oh, the siting study.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it is within the budget, because we already have a certain amount of money in our capital improvement plan for this process. I believe it's about $6 million over the next couple of years. So there's already money in our CIP to perform this. And the siting study, from what discussions I've had, is not going to be terribly expensive, maybe in the $50,000 range. So so that's very tentative. I'll go with that there first. But so yeah, it's within our current CIP budget.
And that siting study would really look at total feasibility on, properties that might be possible around South County.
There'll be, a large level, number of different criteria that sites would be scored upon to see what were, what sites rose to the top from both, actual physical utilities, buildability, there's a whole environmental issues, so basically, there'll be any site that's being looked at will be put against the set of criteria to decide, what makes the most sense.
Right.
And then it'll eventually get down to a shorter list of, weed it down to a number of to then look at further.
So then I guess I'd ask the SWAC, are you inclined to make a motion to recommend that we forward this briefing to the Board of County Commissioners and ask them to initiate a siting study?
I'd like to make a motion that we endorse the report completed by Public Works staff and forward that report to the county commission with our recommendation to move forward with the siting study.
I second that.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Carries. Okay, thank you, Wendy and Jeff. That was great. And it sounds like there might be a MRF tour lining up. So if you have one, maybe let everyone know, and some folk, there might be a few folks who haven't visited the facility that'd like to do that. We're gonna now go to the compost procurement ordinance discussion and go to Dean.
Oh, all right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, sorry. Yeah, so last SWAC meeting last month, we had covered House Bill 1799, as well as the county's response to that, which is basically compiling an ordinance that would put us in full compliance with that. And we had a few good bits of feedback from the SWAC in terms of minor adjustments to make on that ordinance. We've since done that, and what you have in front of you with the packet you received is now that edited version that we're hoping has satisfactorily addressed all those items that were brought up last meeting, and if so, hoping to push this forward as well.
Dean, just for the viewers that won't watch both meetings, can you just put a little bit of context verbally about the significant changes you made?
Yeah, there was a comment regarding making sure that we fully, I guess, word differently what local is considered when you say, local composters. What does that really mean? And we did do some research on that in other counties, and the state doesn't define it in the House bill, and neither does any other county. So we went ahead and just thought 50-mile radius would be appropriate, and so that's what we used, and we define as local. And monetarily, you can really probably pull from compost supply companies within a 50-mile radius, and they'd all be relatively similar in price and transport costs. So that's one item. Another was making sure that we made clear that when we look at price of different composters, we're looking at transport costs as well, and not just the cost of the compost. It's kind of like when we order on Amazon, we don't all just order the item and without looking at shipping, right? We want our free shipping. So we've got to look at the transport costs and figure that into the cost of the material. So that was a great comment. And I don't know, Jeff, can you help me on the third one? I don't have that in front of me.
I don't have it in front of me either, actually.
Yeah, it was.
I can pull up the document if you'd like.
Yeah.
Actually, because it's in red line on the documents, that'd be helpful.
Yeah. Okay, we can move down from there. Or up, excuse me.
There it is. It's right there in section 6, reporting.
Yeah, making sure that when we say diversion, we mean diverting from a landfill. So organic material diverted from landfills each year. So those were our 3 changes.
Thank you. That's really helpful. That way people can connect the dots between the 2 meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, so comments on the updated draft. Okay, well, it sure reads clean to me. I think that the comments the SWAC made were covered. Does anyone disagree? Anyone willing to make a motion to forward the compost procurement ordinance to the Board of County Commissioners for consideration?
I'll move that we forward it on to their consideration.
Second.
Motion from Delroy, a second from Joe. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Great. And thank you very much, Dean and Jeff, for those amendments. I think you captured the discussion really well.
Thank you.
Amanda and I were talking about how, as ordinances go, this one was really easy to understand and plain talk. And that's definitely a compliment to the authors. Okay, now we're going to go to an education and outreach update from Chris Hawkins and Rod Pundner.
Good morning, folks. Chris Hawkins here from Thurston County Public Health and Social Services, manager of our education and prevention efforts, and thank you for working the slides for us this morning, Amanda. This effort that we make is with regard to implementing the household and public education parts of the hazardous waste management plan for Thurston County. Next slide. I'm joined this morning by Kylie Graber, who you've already met, and Jennifer Johnson, who's a longtime education outreach specialist with our department. Jen joined partway through here, so she's now on the Zoom. And we're going to update you a bit since we talked last, I think in April, about our work plan, about our efforts to reduce Thurston County residents' use of hazardous products and ensure all hazardous products that cannot be reduced are properly used, stored, and disposed of. And what we wanted to say about our efforts in the last time since we last talked to you is that we've continued community workshops with a large part of that, the focus this summer on outdoor in-person events for the first time in a while, largely with homeowner groups and neighborhood areas. So trying to take advantage of the good weather for being outdoors and get information out to specific locations around Thurston County. And we had great participation from the Jubilee homeowner group. That's in Northeast Thurston County, the very northeast part of Lacey in the spring. And then more recently in the Delphi Valley, latter part of summer. And that's in obviously the western part of Thurston County. And within this last month, we also did an event at our own building, which was serving the neighborhood in the vicinity of Lily Road Northeast in Olympia. We, in the process of doing those workshops, gathered close to an additional 50 pledges from local residents. And you can see an example of that Healthy Home and Garden pledge here, where residents are making a commitment to reduce their use of more hazardous products or practices that result in more harm or potential harm. And that's putting us on track to achieve both our participation and pledge goals that are associated with our local solid waste financial assistance funding from Department of Ecology to do toxics reduction work with households in the community. We also, a big part of our work in the last several months has been to hire a new staff member. Cynthia Taylor left us in the latter part of spring to work for Thurston County Stream Team. So we are welcoming Kylie Graber to our team as the Health Education and Outreach Program Assistant. She'll be helping work on tracking our information, getting our publications out to the retail stores and community locations, as well as assisting and supporting many of those events that I just mentioned. Kylie just joined us in the last month. Say hi, Kylie.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
And finally, in the last month, you see in that events part of this summary here that we participated in the City of Tumwater's cleanup drop-off event, which went very well. You can see some of the results of that collaborative event there. And the city estimates that it was close to 500 people who participated on Saturday, September 24th. And that's based off of 375 vehicles, many of which had multiple people in them, and sometimes multiple households even coming by to drop off unwanted stuff. So our part in that was largely to distribute information about the availability of household hazardous waste disposal through Pazo House, but also to assist with Tumwater Hope's distributing information on medicine take back. So we produced a new rack card that Kylie will hold up for you, that this updates the information available to the community about where the various drop boxes are for disposal of medications. And that is newly updated because there have been some additional drop boxes that have come online in the last several months. Next slide, please. We continued another Department of Ecology supported project to distribute Hepa vacuums to local households in need. This is an effort to reduce the exposure to flame retardant chemicals in that household environment. We're definitely excited about the results we're going to get out of that as we evaluate it, and a little bit more on that later in this presentation. We also continue to distribute our common sense gardening and integrated pest management information that Patrick's group has developed, Grow Smart, Grow Safe being another piece of that, and related ways to help residents garden and maintain their home environments in a safer way through those community locations, point of purchase in retail stores and community racks and kiosks. Those materials remain popular and useful among local residents. So we're pleased to be able to continue that work as well. And you can see some of the other results of the last, since the last time we talked to you for this year. And if you flip to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about some upcoming things that we have going on in education and prevention. That includes the resumption of our childcare trainings. And that is an effort to help those childcare staff who handle cleaning of the childcares, as well as the managers of those sites and the families of those sites, to learn about better, safer cleaning practices. We will be continuing our healthy yard and garden workshops, including a workshop in the Long Lake area this upcoming weekend. So hitting Lacey with that, Lacey residents. And then we'll be resuming an effort to work with transitional or very low income housing program recipients to educate them about lower hazard home cleaning practices and providing them with safer cleaning kits if they make a healthy home and garden pledge. And then finally, just wanted to remind folks that we do have a healthy home and garden newsletter, e-newsletter, and you are welcome to sign up for that. Jen Johnson coordinates that effort and could let you know more specifically how to sign up for that, as we have a new issue coming out very soon, and we'll have another one before the end of the year with some seasonal tips. So that's what I have for you. Of course, we'll be collaborating with Public Works on some other efforts and make sure that we are aligning our work together. And with that, I'm open to your questions. And thank you for the time.
Questions for Chris? Keep us moving, Rob. Oh, wait, sorry, I see Joseph's hand. Sorry, I couldn't see the people. Go ahead, Joseph.
Yeah, no, I'm just really interested about that whole vacuum thing. And then I was Googling while you were talking, because I had no idea about this whole fire retardant thing. So what is the purpose for that? Is just to, can you explain to me why the fire retardant chemicals are so not healthy? Or
yeah, well, so this is sort of the PFAS and related chemicals that can accumulate over time in households that have furniture. So it's used to treat cushions or has been used to treat cushions over the last decades of production of those kinds of household furnishings. And so those can build up in the home environment, in the dust, and if you have a vacuum that isn't filtering that, it can often be sort of re-released or spread around within the home environment, and potentially with those flame retardants being disposed of potentially improperly as well, they can get out into the environment, which is what Department of Ecology is concerned about, because this is they get some federal funding for a natural estuary program to try to keep waterways free of chemicals of concern like this. And so,
well, thank you for the education on that. I read that I have to have a HEPA filter as well in my vacuum to make that more efficient. So I don't want to take too much more of your time. It was just curiosity. I was like, what's this about? So
thank you. And I see Jen has included something in the chat to help with some further understanding of that.
Have a HEPA filter and keep it clean. Okay, question, Joseph. Okay, Rob.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving to recycling and waste reduction. The first half of this year has been very busy for us, busier than we've been in a very long time. So we've been very excited. Yes, thank you. In May, we sent out a new recycling guide to more than 100,000 households in Thurston County, including multifamily residents. This is the first time that multifamily residents have received a recycling guide from their hauler in the time that I am aware of. So this is a big step for us. And we coordinated the mailer with the launch of our updated website, and with increasingly more views all the time. We're very excited to see how that's going. In August, the website had more than 13,000 page views. So we've got a growing presence online. On social media, where we have 4,200 followers on Facebook and almost 1,300 on Twitter, we coordinated a lot of our outreach to support broader statewide waste and recycling programs, including the promotion of the new multi-jurisdictional Secure Your Load campaign from Department of Ecology, as well as the new paint care program, where residents can recycle their latex and oil-based paints at Hazo House and other locations throughout Thurston County. Next slide. In June, we partnered with Department of Ecology to host free cargo net giveaway events at our Dropbox facilities in Rainier and Rochester. We gave away just under 500 cargo nets, and we had 263 people pre-register and commit to securing their loads properly. The giveaway followed National Secure Your Load Day and was part of a multi-jurisdictional effort to bring awareness to the importance of securing your load properly when traveling to a disposal facility. Unsecured loads are responsible for causing more than 300 car crashes every year and are responsible for more than 5 million pounds of litter that gets tossed or blown out of pickup truck beds, trailers, or boats onto state roadways. So it's pretty important. As Wendy mentioned, our team worked with HDR to coordinate mailers, online surveys, and event outreach for the South County Transfer Station study. We created a web page and we're currently keeping it updated throughout the process, including email notifications for people who have signed up for updates on the study. This year was the first summer in a while that we've been able to attend community events since the pandemic started. This summer, we attended the Lacey Spring Fun Fair, the Thurston County Fair, the Nisqually Valley Barbecue Rally, and the South Sound Barbecue Fest. In total, we spoke with 1,684 people promoting recycling right, paint care, and community engagement in the South County Transfer Station study. These outreach activities are in addition to the farmers markets that occur throughout the county, where our master recycler composter volunteers also share information about recycling programs and campaigns. And Chris, you reminded me about Jubilee. We also did several in-person presentations, including the Good Earth Club from Jubilee, where we had a packed house on 2 separate occasions. We've also been able to increase our outreach coordination with haulers in the county, coordinating to update our uniform recycling materials and signs for bins at large events. Okay, next slide. So coming up, things that we're working on or we're planning. We recently finalized the fall issue of our Trash Talk newsletter that's meant for grades 4 and 5, and we're currently coordinating the printing and distribution throughout the county school districts. This winter, we will work with the Master Recycler Composter volunteers to update the 174 drop-off depots that are listed in our Where Do I Take My online directory. It's a great resource, but it does take a lot of effort to keep it updated. The new county website is approaching, the new one, and our staff will be involved in its development and attend training so that we can make sure to update it as needed. We're currently in the 3rd week of our annual Master Recycler Composter training. And we've had 30 participants this year, so it's the biggest class we've had in several years. And to celebrate America Recycles Day, which is coming up on November 15th, we're planning several online contests through social media during the several weeks leading up to it. As usual, we're planning to coordinate the promotion of Christmas tree recycling throughout the county by making residents aware of the free services provided by Thurston County and the jurisdictions within. We're currently working with LeMay Pacific Disposal to replace outdated and illegible stickers that are located on recycling carts and multifamily properties. I'm very excited about that because a lot of people are interested in doing the right thing, so they consult their cart, and we're going to provide them with updated current information. We're also designing recycling signs for outdoor waste enclosures at multifamily properties to help reduce the contamination. As noted earlier, multifamily properties tend to have a higher contamination rate than single family. So that's promising, and I'm expecting to have these signs available for distribution later this year. And if anyone has any questions for me, I'd be happy to give it a shot and help you out.
Rob.
Oh, I heard my name. I didn't hear anything else after that.
Well, that was me. I said thank you, Rob.
Oh, okay. You're welcome.
I'm the one in the cave here.
I see you.
Questions? Okay, well, thank you very much. Those were both really good updates. You guys are busy for all that you do. Okay, with that, I think we're going to go to Jeff for the manager's update.
Okay, I just have a few items that I thought I'd bring up for the good of the order here before we let you go, as you were winding down. First off, I want to mention, so last Thursday on September 29th, myself and your illustrious SWAC chair, Renee Radcliffe-Sinclair, and I provided a briefing to the Board of County Commissioners, basically going over, what were the items that the SWAC covered and talked about over the last year or so, and giving them an idea of some of the things, the topics that we'll be looking at and discussing over the upcoming year. We'll be sending out a copy of the PowerPoint that we use for our presentation to y'all, along with the follow-up information after this meeting, so you can kind of see what it was that we presented. But I do want to comment that both Commissioner Mejia and Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner Menser was not able to make the briefing, but we're very, very complimentary of this group and really wanted to express thanks to you all for all that you do, and they think they're doing a great job. And again, they were extremely complimentary, so I just passed that forward. And if Commissioner Mejia was here today, I'm sure she would echo that as well, since she was one of the ones who said it. The next item is that we're just going to update on the waste characterization study that's currently ongoing through a grant from Ecology. We had a successful waste sort the 3rd week of August, and the next scheduled sort will be in the 2nd week of November, so that's coming up here shortly. A little too quickly, in my opinion. I can't believe we're already in October. But a copy of the memo that was prepared by HDR that kind of summarizes this particular sort, we'll also be sending out to y'all just to take a look at the packet or after this meeting. So some interesting interesting results. Again, this is just one of the sorts, so but will be interesting to see is when we finish all the sorts and kind of get the amalgamation of and blend it all together to see what that comes up as. But again, very interesting, particularly how much C&D waste and in particular furniture, how high of a percentage that is in the waste stream here. It's unusual, I'll put it that way. So that'll be coming at you shortly. And the one other item second to last item I want to mention is, if you recall, last month I talked about a potential impending railway strike that could have potentially come up. So the possible strike was actually averted on the last day before the deadline that had been given. So the strike would have taken place starting September 16th if the parties hadn't been able to negotiate terms. So I know the federal, the White House got involved and they came to terms. However, that being said, there's still a number of the unions, and there's a number of unions that have yet to actually ratify and vote on these proposed contracts. So we're still keeping our eye on it, and some of these votes are even out into November. So we're not totally out of the woods yet, but all indications are looking good for that. And again, I actually have a list of, again, they'll be sending out with the manager's update report that will come out afterwards, that shows which unions, and when would they, which unions have yet to vote and when they expect to vote. And with that, I do see Steve Gilmore has his hand up for a potential question or addition, I guess.
Yeah, Jeff, I was just going to add, the cooling off period for the unions is now December 19th. So there will be no action by them in terms of labor action until at least December 19th.
So that holds us off for having to worry about them going on strike for a while, but hopefully they will all ratify. But again, it's something that we're keeping our eyes on. So, because as you are aware, a rail strike would definitely hinder our ability to ship our waste down to Roosevelt. And with that, only other item I want to mention is, we just so you know, we've had a little bit of turnover in our education and outreach group. So we are currently actually hiring for a new communications supervisor. Just so they've continued to do the good work that they're doing, but there are will be some positions open. So just like in every other, like our toll house workers, et cetera, we're hiring for those. If you know somebody who's interested in working in our toll house or in our communications group, those jobs are open online right now. So I just thought I'd pitch that as well. Does anybody have any questions about any of that or something else? You guys are easy. Okay.
Seeing any, Jeff? We'll save them for a time when we have more time, maybe too. Any other questions or comments for the good of the order today? I'll just lift up from the chat. Jennifer said if anybody wants to be added to the newsletter, to drop your name in the chat. So if you're interested in that, Jennifer or Jim Cooper, I'd love to be added if you don't mind.
Yeah, that would be great. Just I just need your name, and I mean, obviously Jim Cooper, but I need your email address. And just so folks know, we just put this out about 6 times a year, and it just comes to your email box. And of course, we're never going to give your emails to anybody else. And it's just really basic. We try to make it fun, information about, safer households and yards. It's really focused on hazardous materials, but we never call them that because, of course, that's not what the public calls them. So we try to keep it really simple and light and easy. Steve, did you have a question for me?
No, just good of the order when we get around to just putting out information.
Thank you, Jennifer. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, show of hands if you would, please. How many people have been to Bucota in the last month?
Must be time to go. I haven't.
Yeah,
Is there
yeah,
something happening this month?
I was going to say, I don't see any hands. What the hell's the matter with you people? Yeah, Bucota Spooktacular is going on all month. That's our month-long celebration of everything Halloweeny. Halloweeny? Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, we got something going on every Saturday, an event, and every Friday and Saturday, we got our award-winning haunted house. And this Saturday, starting at noon, we have our hearse procession and viewing. So if you want to see what 16 hearses are like, all going down a 1 mile main street, be here at noon.
He will give you a ride in a hearse. I just heard it here.
That's right. That's right. I do offer free rides in the hearse. One way.
Well, thank you for that, Steve. I think everyone's looking for fun stuff to do out and about, and Bucota's a great place to visit. So
Yeah, we've got some great vendors down here on Saturday. So yeah, come on down. You'll find something to do, and you can't miss me. I look like I dress like that, and I drive a big black Cadillac station wagon.
Nice. Okay, we'll keep an eye out for you.
All right.
Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, I'll just point out that ballots will go out in our county here very soon, and the election day will happen before we meet again. So please look for your ballot. And I know Commissioner Downing and Commissioner Mejia would love it if I said for everyone to really pay attention to the measures that the port and the county have put on. And I think that's as far as I can go without violating any rules, but I wanted to make sure that everyone is paying attention to their ballot. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.